r/ask Reddit. What do you genuinely not understand? Why I continue to procrastinate and self-sabotage. Edit. Thanks for all the awards and comments. Just wanted to say a few things. This was not supposed to be a cry for help. I am fine. Just was in a bad mood yesterday when I posted. Yes, I have ADD, depression and anxiety. Anyone who suggested that maybe the cause is correct. I am on meds. They help a ton. If this comment rang true to anyone, I would definitely recommend seeing a mental health professional. It can make a world of difference. Anyone who suggested it's because I'm lazy, not disciplined, or any other r/thanks I'm cured type nonsense, you can go duck yourself. Let's find that out later. I will. But first, lem check Reddit. This is totally due to me not looking it up, but I don't know how dry cleaning works. Understandable. It's a liquid, like a solvent, that is water free. Oh, I thought it was called dry cleaning cause they dried it up afterwards. The order of emails in a Gmail thread. The one you are looking for is always hidden somewhere in the middle. I used to look at the date time of each message in a thread to orient myself, until I started working with an international team and realized Gmail sometimes puts their timestamp on the message, not mine. The realization came when I was going through a chain and noticed half the messages were sent from the future. Edit. I couldn't in good conscience use realization and realized in the same sentence. My apologies to the gods of prose. Chemistry. I only passed because my professor curved every F to a C. You got an Cyrillic letter Ukrainian yet? Your genius knows no bounds. Sudden motivation at midnight. I've read that it's due to there being no pressure or thoughts of what could go wrong. This is due to the fact that the motivation is typically for things that would be in the future or carry over into the future, and there is no reason to start or finish the things being thought of at that moment. Makes sense. I've always associated successful people with the lack of fear of failure. Why does the word fridge have the letter D in it, while refrigerator does not? Duck this shit, I didn't realize that. I only know it because I've typed refrigerator and gotten the squiggly red line about a million times lol. How these dogs that have these dense bangs hanging over their eyes can see a single goddamn thing. Ask the emo kids. I worked with a guy who used to have emo side bangs in high school. He told me he couldn't see shit for 2 years. That no concept of an absolute position in space exists. Oh, for duck's sake, my day was going so well. Thanks for that. If it helps, we have lots of guideposts. Pulsars spin very consistently and we have documented and mapped out a lot of them. We can use these as place markers to orient ourselves if we ever become a galaxy-faring species. Big if there. Edit. Faring, faring. Because I'm an idiot. Why the duck does my brain only realize I'm wrong after I've already done it? Bitcoin mining. Solving algorithms? What? Who? Why? Imagine if keeping your car idling 24/7 produced solved Sudokus you could trade for heroin. Edit. My friends, I paraphrased this from something I read years ago and the original source is apparently a tweet. I am not comfortable with all these awards. Finally an explanation that makes sense. Space. It makes my brain hurt trying to figure out things like stars and black holes, etc. The size and distances with space are hard to fathom. The time it takes to get anywhere is depressing. The sizes and distances of it all is absolutely mind-boggling. It's so massive and far that it has to be measured in the amount of distance that light can travel in a year. And light travels 186,000 miles per second. I feel so insignificant just thinking about it, but it can also be kind of comforting in a way, because that means that all my problems are also insignificant in the grand scheme of things. Why do people who seem miserable as parents decide to have more kids? I'd like to direct this question towards the parents I currently nanny for. The father clearly doesn't like his kids, has said before he never even wanted kids, and yet they have three children that are quite honestly some of the worst behaved kids I've ever worked with. And I've been working with kids in and out of a school setting going on 15 years now. Why didn't you stop after the first one? It's the puppy principle. They want something to love, something that loves them. But once the potty training and the cost and the medical stuff comes up, it's all just a in the moment decision. How light is both a particle and a wave? It's neither. It's something that we don't have a word for and that doesn't exist in a way that we can sense directly. But this unnamed thing happens to act in a way similar to a wave in some situations and like a particle in others. A cylinder will roll like a sphere in one direction but not roll like a cube in the other. That doesn't make it a sphere and a cube at the same time. It makes it something different. Edit. Thanks for all the awards. Edit 2. To answer the many why don't we name it then, or we do have a name for it. It's light photons something else comments. The problem isn't the lack of a word. The problem is how to convey the meaning behind the word. Plus typo fixes. Such a great answer. Thank you. I really do not get how a needle in a record player bouncing back and forth can create such rich sound. I just can't even imagine how rubbing a needle against vinyl can create a perfect replication of a sound. I get that it could make sound, like a rubbing noise, but to replicate a human voice, what is happening there? A simple, and not entirely accurate, but understandable, description is just that sound is a wave, in the physics sense. When creating a record, the needle is vibrated in a manner so it exactly captures the shape of the wave the sound is making, and it etches it into the record. When you play back the record, it uses that vibration to recreate the wave, and thus it recreates the sound. The record does of course make a very quiet scratching rubbing sound, but it's the tiny movement of the needle that actually tells the record player exactly what sound to make. The YouTube algorithm. Let's recommend this video to everyone. In 5 years. And again 5 years later also this shit YouTube. You can't say anything R-rated also YouTube. Can you fail the difference between a DLDO or NDA real coke? Edit. Holy shit. This blew the duck up. R.I.P. my inbox. At work watching YouTube videos ad begins. There is a bacteria called Lacula cusencery and it can make your balls bigger. Me and my horrified co-workers waiting for a funny cat video. How electricity works. Amps, volts, watts, etc. Ugh. Amps, how many electrons flow. Volts, the force with which the generator is pushing these electrons. Watts, the amount of energy carried every second. This of course depends on the amount of electrons. So the amps, and the force they are pushed. So the volts. Watts, if watts is the speed of energy transfer, this is the distance. That is the total amount of energy you transfer, which means that if you have 200 watts of energy available and something consumes 100 watts, you can only power it for 2 hours. If it consumes 50 watts, you can power it for 4 hours. Other ones? I'm highly entertained that Jared Sparks is getting electricity fundamentals from Giant Electron. My intentions when doing things. It seems that I can attribute everything I do to manipulation and attention seeking, and it's kinda unsettling. Next time you see a homeless person, give them a $20, but don't say anything to them but you're welcome if they say thank you. Roll a $50 into a $1 so that it only looks like a $1 and leave it for your waiter sometime when you go out to eat. Give a genuine compliment to someone that you will likely never see again without expecting one back. Volunteer with a charity organization doing menial, but necessary, tasks that don't put you in any photo op or even interacting with those the charity is helping. The most important part of all this is to never tell anyone you do any of this unless absolutely necessary. I'm Christian, and while I know that it's not everyone's persuasion, one of the best lessons I've learned is to do good deeds quietly, and doing so has increased my feeling of responsibility for those in need around me. It obviously started out being self-gratifying, but when I tried to be genuine and just help others, that feeling disappeared, which was an awesome feeling in itself. It has grown to be a way for me to feel closer to the mission God has for me, which is to love my neighbor even if my neighbor never thinks of me, and I feel like it's making the world a little bit of a better place one deed at a time. Edit. This blew up bigger than I could ever imagine. I want to thank everyone for the kind comments. There's been a few attacking my mention of Christianity in here, and I guess that's fair. I am Christian. It's part of who I am. So mention of it is second nature and wasn't meant to offend anyone. I don't ask for understanding, but just respect as a person. I hope that my comment helped someone somehow. It's good to recognize it when it happens. but maybe some of it is just persuasion, the kind and fair cousin of manipulation, where in the latter there's a direct or indirect threat playing on fears of the other person. As for attention seeking, you can try to limit it, but don't dwell on it too much. People usually punish the extreme attention seekers in one form or another. Those people who do parkour on high-ass buildings, one mistake and you're dead. Well, they get a buzz out of that feeling of risk, and so they keep doing it to keep replicating that buzz. If it was safe, they wouldn't do it because there would be no excitement. I think a better question is how they don't die more frequently. People that treat everybody around them terribly then complain that nobody likes them. People that proudly say, yeah, I'm an a-hole. Had an acquaintance that proudly and giddily said, I'm toxic, I left fast. Quantum physics, but mostly how there could ever be a smallest thing, like everything is made up of something else. Zooming down, how could there be something that's not made up of smaller parts? Like string theory, right? Smallest thing is supposed to be vibrating strings of energy. Like what is that energy made of? I don't get it. Want to not understand even more stuff? Loop quantum gravity. The usual quantum mechanics is insufficient. We need a field description. Quarks, the basic building blocks of ordinary matter, cannot exist as blocks. They always have to be making something up. These things are pretty much the visible edge of our knowledge in physics, or our hopes for what could be on the other side of the boundary. Obviously, these notions are not necessarily complete, except for QFT, which is incredibly accurate. The existence of quarks as the basic building blocks is only correct until we find evidence against it. What I find amazing about physics is that it's becoming more and more about asking the right questions. One good what if question can unlock secrets to things we didn't even know we didn't understand, and possibly even give us insight on things we knew about but could not explain. My favorite example, how general relativity explained the precession of the orbit of Mercury around the sun, all the while gifting us with black holes and all the other crazy stuff. Don't believe a word a quark says. Got it? How I get taller and more handsome every time my grandma sees me. The stock market. I'll try and LI5 this. You have a nice little company. You decide, hey, I'm going to let anyone buy a little piece of my business. It'll raise a bunch of money for my company, and in exchange the buyers will own a little piece of it. You sell these little pieces of your company, shares of it, to lots of your neighbors and friends who buy these little pieces. Since they've bought these shares in your company, they also get little bonuses. Like if you make profits, you share them out with these shareholders. They can also vote on stuff that might affect the company. When you think about it, once you sell a lot of these shares, then these people sort of own the company. It's just that you run it, and you better run it well, otherwise they might vote someone else in and put them in charge. Your company is a cool little tech company. Other people think, hey, this might take off. I want a share of that. So these other people start buying these shares off your neighbors and friends, offering them more money, because they think these shares of your company will be worth more in the future. It's far easier to do this on some sort of market rather than buying from your neighbors and friends directly. There's a market for these shares and shares of other companies. It's called the stock market. People buy and sell shares of companies on that market depending on what's happening in the world. So e.g., a pandemic hits. They think, hey, loads of people will be staying at home. They'll probably be watching a whole ton of Netflix. I bet Netflix will get loads more subscribers. So I am going to buy Netflix shares because I think it's gonna go up. And that's what they do. This is well explained, thank you. Why the hiring process at most companies is so damn slow. Back in the 60s, you could walk into a business asking about a job on Friday and start work the following Monday. Now, despite having access to tons of information about a candidate on the internet, it takes 6 or more weeks in many cases. My ex once interviewed for a job and thought she did terrible. She never heard back at all, so accepted something else that she interviewed for at the same time. They called her almost 2 months later to tell her they had accepted her and she had the job. Her response: no, I have a great job, and why would I even want to work for a place that treats a future employee like that? They seemed generally confused that she wasn't waiting for them to call her. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.